One of the things that I'm going to be interested in, well, let me just say first, I think we're all kind of touching on this. We need to understand kind of what our methods are for data collection. Who's going to do it? Who's going to pay for it? What's going to be collected? How will it be used? But I'd also like to add that we're also going to have to weigh out some of the data and like what's important. And I will confess that when I was a kid, I was obsessed with like catching tadpoles and putting them in like little jars. And this was not good for the local frog population, but it was really good for me. And it was really good for what it made me become, which is a kind of tireless environmental advocate. And so I think sometimes you see things that are a harm to an urban forest, but they may have that like unintended consequence of really changing a kid's life and putting them in touch with nature in a way that they can't experience if they're kept like in a really sterile place. And for me, part of my passion in this project is to give a lot of kids access to woods, to give them an immersive experience in nature. And I want to see that we put a little bit more weight on that than perhaps like a tadpole, you know, just in a utilitarian way. I have a different opinion for the tadpoles out in the Olympics.
If they are bullfrog tadpoles, kill them. Because they're terribly invasive frogs. So you might have been doing a good thing for the environment. You may not know.
I want to follow up with Melanie. So doesn't that speak to what you were saying earlier about these qualitative measures and really getting in touch with what the experience is on the trail, and not and having both? We want qualitative and quantitative as well, but
you know, absolutely, but I think to, you know, what Philip and Weston were both saying, like, you're looking for things that you can measure, and unfortunately you can't really measure some of those impacts. It's not going to show up in a 3-year report. And so I just want to keep an eye out on things that are really intangible and immeasurable.
I actually have a real comment, not for a joke. But, I think the key point here is before we even can ask questions like this is understanding what does success look like. So if success is that we successfully got youth from the community to have a connection with nature and have time outdoors, and that would be one thing that we could measure. How many children were out there, what was their length of time, so on and so forth. If our concern is that we want to make sure is this bicycle trail able to have a net positive, then we have different criteria that we're looking at. So I think that before we even start with the questions we'll ask quarterly is just making sure that we're really, and maybe we are clear elsewhere, but they should definitely be on the same document as the questions, is what does success look like when we measure this?
so I'm going to need your help, you guys. I need language. I mean, we've gone through a couple of drafts of this, but I need your writing and I need your language and I need your ideas. So how about if we take this next week and just give me actual written language that you'd like to see incorporated in here, and then we'll continue to work on a final draft. Because I'm trying the best to capture your stuff, but getting your actual words is going to be more and more helpful for Doug and I. What do you think, Doug? I'm nodding with that. Here, and just a minute, I want to, Doug, any other thoughts you have on getting this ready to go?
Well, I'm very interested in baseline as well, and I guess what I see here is I see the science, the scientific approach, and the social aspects of it, but I'm interested in baseline, water quality, interested in erosion and what that means if there is going to be sloughage on the site. How do we mitigate that, and what's an acceptable mitigation? It's that type of thought process that I want to go into this, and I'm hoping to draw off of this geotech report. I'm interested in what you have to say about baseline and what your understanding is. I think we need to go out and do some water quality tests when the trail is developed. We do some water quality tests out in the field, and then that becomes our baseline. We check it now, and then we check it over a quarterly basis. Are we seeing a degradation in water quality, for example? Things like that. I think that's what I'm looking for. The tangible, quantifiable measures, as well as the qualitative that goes with that. But I think that it's going to be really important from a scientific approach. That's in terms of the effect of the bike trail on that site. And I think that you're right, Weston. I think we need to look at it from more of a holistic approach, not just the immediacy of the trail, but how it affects the entire site. So we need to think about strategic points in which we could be.
Well, and I think the other piece too to add on to that, Doug, is to keep in mind that the water flows downhill.
Yeah. That's
So what's happening to the folks at Raymond Vista as a result? I mean, are there times to survey them and to ask them how's the water impacting their yards, their houses? Because we all know, living in that area, that it changes. And I haven't heard yet really baseline data for wildlife. Because I know that as neighbors, we've seen deer every year up until this year. So I'm wondering, and I've also talked to forest stewards who have seen deer in the Duwamish area. So it's, grand things are changing. So where can we get that? The piece that is put up on the website really was only looking for raccoons and possums. So,
All right, I'm going to send out, Doug and I'll confer a little bit here, but I think I'll send out a reminder email tomorrow and have you guys send me actual language, and let's take the next week and try to get this kind of redone here, and then we have something to look at for a good couple of weeks before our next meeting. Daryl?
I'll try to be brief here. When it comes to wetlands and performance standards, we may not have any say in it. It's actually driven by the regulatory process, and it'll be probably up to your wetland consultant to actually write those performance standards. So keep that in mind.
And likely would be up to them to test. I mean, that's part of the issue with surveying is that depending on what these criteria that people are surveying for, if they're not qualified to assess that, then it's useless data. I think that keeping certain criteria simple for maybe the quarterly group, and that might be more qualitative issues, but then are there, if again success is that there was no net negative to the site because of this trail, then those criteria would have to be set. I mean, the geotech person said that there's sloughing happening now with the only impact is illegal activities happening on the site and whatever the people up top might be doing. So, and those are, to me, those are big questions of who's going to be doing the surveys if they're going to dictate whether there's success or not. On the wildlife, I would agree that it's unlikely that there would be endangered species in that site, but I don't think 2 visits is going to determine one way or the other whether they were there. I mean, a good percentage of the bird life isn't there at this time of year because it's winter. So, but at the same time, the assessment was that this type of impact should have little to no impact on the wildlife, and then the other impact of habitat restoration should have tremendous positive. So this is what's challenging about just saying, having a list of questions that we're going to look at once a quarter if it doesn't match up with specific what our goals would be.
Okay, good. I look forward to working on this over the next week with all of you.